Hi everyone, this video is the first part of a series on creating web applications in Django. In this series, you will be learning how to create web applications in Django. If you are watching this video, I am assuming that you already know what Django is. So I won't go explaining the introductory part of Django and would be talking more about the programming side. For those who are very new in Python programming, Django is a web framework built in Python for developing websites, web applications in Django. Okay, I'll try to explain the basics of Django wherever needed. You can also ask your questions in the comment section. I'll try to cover them up in the upcoming videos. In this tutorial, I will be working with latest Django, which is 3.0 at this moment. And for that, I already have Python 3.7 installed on my computer. Okay, so let's get started with programming. So, in order to create a Django web application, I will first set up a virtual environment on my machine so that my other projects are not affected. And virtual environment is sort of a virtual box on your machine in which you can install your packages related to the project, and it won't be installed system wide and won't affect your other projects. And I prefer to do it that way. Let's first create a virtual environment here. I've named it test env. You can choose any name you want. So my virtual environment is created here. In order to start using it, we need to first activate it. Let's do that. Okay. So my virtual environment is now activated. And now if I install anything in this virtual environment, it will be limited to this environment only. So first we need to install Django, obviously. Let's do that. Okay, so Django is installed now. And we need to first create a project and then write any program in the projects. We will do it using a Django command called Django admin. Start project. Let's call it Django part 1. Okay, so the project is created. Now let's get into this project. Sorry, part 1. Let us see what we have here. So by default, Django has created one file called manage.py and Django part 1, another folder. We will look at this manage.py file in future videos. For now, let's stick to the basics and we will get into this Django part 1 directory and see what we have here. Okay, so as you know that this init.py is representing that this directory is not just a simple directory but a package. So it's a general convention. urs.py, we will check this one. Let's first check this settings.py file. Let me enlarge my window. Okay. The important part that I will be talking about here is the first one is installed apps. So a Django project is collection of small applications. For example, authentication would be a separate application. Let us assume that if you are creating a blog application, then blog would be a separate application, and then authentication. If you are, let us assume, developing some other sort of some other web project, you can divide it into small applications and then install it here. In order to let Django understand about all installed application, we need to list them here. You can see there are a few installed applications are already here. We'll talk about it later. Middleware, these are the programs which are executed before a request is processed. You can check about these things on Django official website. Template setting, here we actually tell Django where to find the view files. So Django is a MVT framework, whereas M stands for model. Model is responsible for communicating with the database. View is where all the logic is, all the logics are written. It's like a controller. If you have experienced with other frameworks, other web frameworks out there, you probably are familiar with model view controller terminology. So view is sort of a controller for this project. T stands for template. Template are the actual view files where you show your designs to your users, show the data sent from the view file, and let users communicate with your system through those view files. This is the part where we configure our database. For this project, for this tutorial, we will be using SQLite database, but you can check this link and you will find several other database settings, and you can choose from available options like MySQL, PostgreSQL, and many more. These are related to internationalization. I mean, the language that we would be using for this project would be English language, but when we work on multiple languages projects, we change the language code accordingly, and we will talk about it in future tutorials. This is the section where we define the static URL, the URL structure to serve static files. I mean the CSS, JavaScript, and images files. We will again come back to these settings as we go along. Let's go back and check other files. I will before we get into the other parts, I would like to show you the urls.py file. This is the file where we define all our URLs. So whenever a request is received at Django project, it first checks the corresponding matching URL, and if the request URL matches with any of the URLs listed here, it then finds the corresponding view and transfers the code, the request, to be handled in views files. And we will check about these things later. At this point of time, you can see there is already a URL listed here, and it's for the admin panel, and which we are going to talk about right after we close this file. So we have pretty much understood the Django structure, it's very straightforward. We have to primarily deal with URLs and settings, and then we can start building our application and configure urls.py file accordingly and settings.py file to let Django know about those applications. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, Django, there is a default URL in the urls.py file which we have seen, and that is for the admin panel. So Django is shipped with a default admin panel, which is very fascinating, and I love it very much. You can configure your admin panel without writing much program, and we are going to see it just now. So in order to activate and start using admin panel, we need to first create the basic table, and thanks to Django, it already has all those table logics written with it. So all we have to do is just run the migrate command. Let's get one level up. Python 3. Since I have Python 3 installed, I'm working with Python 3 here. Manage.py, migrate. Okay. So my tables are created here. And now I can start the development server. Alright, let's copy this URL, open any browser of your choice, and then paste here. Okay, so this is the default, the root URL of any Django project, and the home page kind of tells that the Django has been configured successfully and that we can start writing program now. But we will check the admin section first, as I was talking about. Okay, so this admin section is here, and as you can see, it's written Django administration. But we have not yet created any user. So nobody is allowed to log in at this point of time. Let's stop our development server and create one user, one super user. Let's leave it for now. Email address. Okay, so my super user is created now. I will again start this server. And go back here. My username was Rakesh, my password was something, and here we are. We are now logged in into Django administration. So these are the default applications which we had seen in our installed app section in the settings.py file. And the important part at this point of time is to see this user section. You can play around this and you can create more users and log out and then try to log in again, and as long as the newly created users are added as a staff user or an admin user, they will be allowed to log in the backend section. And as I mentioned earlier, we can enable different applications to be controlled from the Django admin side without writing much program. Let's try to do that. And I'm going to create a new application, going back to the terminal. We'll again use the Django admin command. Start app. Let's call it blog. Okay. Let's get into this blog, see what we have here. We will use admin.py. But before we use that, let us create a model here. Let us add a column called title, and it will be a character field with a maximum length 100. A description field. Oops. Let's call it a text field because our descriptions are going to be longer. And let's add a date here. And you can see I'm not writing any raw SQL here. Rather, I'm letting Django model know about the field, and with that being added, I'm kind of indirectly creating my basic validations also. And I'll explain it why I'm saying this. But for now, let's stick to let's stick to what we are doing. So for now, I'm creating one field with character of a varchar type in terms of database, having maximum length 100, one text field and one date field. Let us save it. Okay, so our basic application, blog application, is created here. But we have not added this application in our settings.py file. So Django at this point of time does not know about this application. So let's first add this application in our Django project. We will go to installed apps section. Okay. So our Django application now understand about this application. So since we have added a new model, we need to make migrations in Django, which will be eventually translated into database table. Let's do that. Make migrations, and then we will run the migrate command. Okay, so at this point of time, our block table is created in the database, and then we will see it in just a moment. Let us configure this blog application to be managed from the admin sections, and in order to do that, we will go to the blog application again and open the admin.py file. Okay, so we will create a class blog admin admin.model At this point of time, we won't do anything. We just want a basic management from the admin side. So we will leave it as is. And we will import the models also, blog, and then we will register it. And we will map the blog model with blog admin class. We will save it and then run the server again. Oops. Invalid syntax. Let us see why is it showing invalid syntax. Oh, I have a spelling mistake here. Okay, let's get back to the admin dashboard. Here we have this section. It's showing the application that we have, and then inside the application we have the models that we have created. Let's try to add a new blog title 1, description 1, blog title 2, description 2. Alright, now let's go back and see. Okay, at this point of time we have created 2 blocks, but you can see that these blocks are not readable. It is showing block object. So in order to make it readable, we will go back in and do some changes in the model file. At this point of time, Django does not know as to what should it show when the blog object is called. So we will define a function here. Return self.title. Let us run the server again. Okay, so you can see now we are able to see the blog title here. So similarly, you can create more blogs and try to see how it works. Maybe you can try to connect it with MySQL database and see how things are progressing here. Try to create a new user as well from the admin section. Try to see how staff and admin roles work. Try to see what is inside the groups module, and I'll catch up with you in the next video. And please don't forget to subscribe to my channel. It will help you stay updated with my upcoming videos. Thank you. Goodbye.